this is Nigel.
And Colin with another Encore Years podcast.
This is about retirement and learning to love it.
So today we're talking to Fiona and Judith. It's like a double session, 2 for the price of 1.
Whoa.
And the 2 of them have built this amazingly active retirement, or active life since retiring. And really we want to ask them how they did it and what can we learn from it.
Okay, can I kick off? Judith and Fiona, what did you do before retiring?
So this is Fiona. So I was an accountant. I did train all the way from bookkeeping, actually. When I started work, there was a ledger. It was paper. And I used to spend all day tapping into till rolls to get the right answer at the bottom of the column. Eventually, I trained to be an accountant. And then I moved into implementing computer systems for accountants. So I ended up being the liaison between the business and the technology teams.
Good, that's interesting.
And you?
Colin, do you want to add anything, ask anything?
No, that sounds just a variety of things, starting from the paper and then into the big systems.
Good.
Judith?
Okay, yes. And Judith?
Okay. I started working in 1976 and I was initially working for WH Smith, the retailer, and started work as a trainee buyer for music and video, and had many years in both buying and marketing in entertainment software, about 20 years, and then decided for a complete change and trained to be a chef. And that led me off in obviously a very completely different direction, and I ran a cafe and outside catering business from Marble Hill, from the cafe as was then, and had a great time there. Very enjoyable, but it was like 7 days a week and no time off, and it was tough. So I decided to go back into the music industry, but not back into retail, and joined a company called the Association of Independent Music, and they represent independent record labels, and I helped their members internationalize their business. So a lot of that was traveling internationally to places like India, China, America, Australia, taking groups of our members overseas, trying to help them make connections and do business in those countries.
So you retrained and then you trained again.
Something like that, yeah.
What incredible careers. It's very interesting. And can I ask, when you retired, what were the first 6 months of retirement like?
You take that first.
No, you go.
All right, okay. I decided to retire early at 58. I've actually been retired since 2006, so it will be 10 years this September. And the first 6 months, I actually probably couldn't tell you, because I just slipped into retirement so easily, had no regrets about, missing work. The Association of Independent Music was a very small organisation, so there were only 9 of us in the organisation, and I worked very autonomously. And it's probably my international contacts that I missed the most, but I just sort of like slipped into retirement really easily, and I've enjoyed it ever since. Fiona's experience is completely different.
Okay.
So the one thing that Judith forgot to mention was she stopped working on the idea that she would take 3 months off to think about what she was going to do work-wise, and then never went back.
You fell for that?
Yes, I did. And then I used it myself. So in 2019, I was coming to the end of a contract. We sold the house, we packed our bags, and we went to Southeast Asia for about 5 weeks. And the intention really at the time was for us to come home at the end of that trip and just book another trip. So my first month, I suppose, was on holiday in Southeast Asia. We came home and my uncle had died, so I was helping my father with that funeral. And during the chaos of everything that was going on, a friend had posted on Facebook that it had been a year since she was diagnosed with breast cancer, and that we should all check our breasts. I did so and found something unusual. Within a couple of days, I was in with a consultant who told me before we left that I had breast cancer, and that my treatment plan would be worked out once we knew more about it. So my second month was finding out all of the things that had to happen, and then going through surgery. So I had a double mastectomy and a DF flap reconstruction, which is pretty major surgery. There's plenty of other surgeries that are much harder than that, but it was a long surgery. As I got home and was recovering from that, COVID joined us. So the world changed again. So the first COVID lockdown did not impact me whatsoever because I was going through chemo and then I was hiding out in the house anyway. I did all my treatment under that kind of lockdown. So when I did eventually go out after lockdown was released, I found it very strange. Judith kept grabbing me and going, "No, there's a queue. You've got to queue to get into the shop." And I was like, oh. So yeah, anyway, so my 3 months off to think about what I wanted to do turned into probably a year and a half. And I did try doing some work, and it became very apparent very quickly that the chemotherapy had quite a whack for me and my ability to hold my concentration. So I had to take a step back from working. So I started volunteering.
Wow. Okay. Can I ask you, both of you, what is your biggest post-retirement achievement, would you say?
Volunteering at the Real Junk Food Project. So the Real Junk Food Project, they save food from landfill, and they have a number of different centres within the borough of Richmond. And I volunteer at the one at Linden Hall in Hampton, and they have a food hub there, but I also cook about 10 or 12 litres of soup every week, which is about 50 portions, and it's a bit like Ready Steady Cook. It depends on what veg has come in, and if no fresh veg has come in, then we raid our store cupboard. But yeah, I really enjoy that, and I'm doing that for must be about 3 years now. Great sense of camaraderie with the volunteers there, and it's a really good ethos to the organisation.
And so the typical people who come in there, does it surprise you in sort of leafy Hampton?
Quite often when I'm telling people about the organisation and the voluntary work I do, they say, "Oh, is it mainly homeless people?" But it's not. I mean, we some people that come through, it'll be a couple and they'll have one or two children, both in work, and by the time they've paid all of their bills, they virtually have no money to spend on food. So it's not that these people are unemployed or necessarily. I'm sure some of them may be, but at Hampton, we don't usually get anybody that's living on the street. A lot of them are sort of like down on their luck, maybe, but also because it's not an organisation where you have to be referred to use our, what we offer. You get, people like Fiona and I, for example, who go along, do a weekly shop and then make a generous donation. But there's no pressure to make a donation, but some people might put £1 in a week and other people nothing, and other people £5 maybe.
So
and
must be.
Fiona, are you cooking as well?
If you ever tasted anything I cooked, you would not have asked that question.
I think that's a no, Nige.
It's not my skill set.
I'm sorry, hang on.
We'll scrub that bit out.
Your turn, Colin.
That's great, Judith. Fantastic. So Fiona, I know, because knowing both of you, you are pretty busy on volunteering as well. It seems.
Yeah, so I've done a few different things since I stopped working. So originally I started out as a trustee for a language school, and I did that for a little while, but actually it felt a bit too much like working, where I was back to negotiating constantly. And, it was, some of the things were easy to go in and get the bank system so that we could pay electronically rather than writing checks. And during COVID, that was quite interesting, standing on someone's doorstep where they wrote the check out in front of you and then signed it. So we did some things like put them on electronic banking, set up an accounting system so that the numbers were available without, loads of manual work. And then it was the big ticket items didn't go down very well. And so I decided it was time for me to part ways. my negotiation skills weren't there anymore like they had been before. So then I got in contact with the Richmond Furniture Scheme, and here I found my second home, if you like. So I got involved there, and it was mostly about painting furniture or refinishing furniture, so that any donations that had to be fixed or made look good, we could turn them around. And so I was part of the carousel team there, and I did that for quite a few years. I haven't done so much lately. I tend to avoid it in the winter when it's cold. They've got quite a good team there, so they seem to have quite a good churn. But I do pop in there quite often because the other part of they have a warehouse where they fix furniture, or a room where they fix furniture. And sometimes I go in there and help out. And the other thing that they also do is go out and teach people how to make planters is quite a common one, but they make different things. We turn up with a kit, we've got some tools, a drill, and sometimes it's the first time that someone has ever touched a drill or even a screwdriver or hammer. For me, one of the biggest achievements was we had a person with a very limited sight, and I explained to him that he actually could do this, and he did, and he was very happy at the end that he'd achieved it. So yeah, and while I was at the Richmond Furniture Scheme, somebody mentioned about the Repair Cafe, and hence I became part of the Repair Cafe.
Very good.
So yeah, so I'm quite busy. I also have an elderly mum who I go and see, and yeah, I'm always doing something.
I used to have an allotment when we were in our previous house. So I've had an allotment in total for probably about getting on for 20 years now.
Ah.
And we've just erected a polytunnel and built, you'll be pleased about this, Colin, and built a fruit cage out of an old gazebo. But I'm on the committee there as well, and I organise their events. And last year I organised a plant sale, which we'd never had before, and I grew 130 tomato plants just to make sure that we had some stock. But fortunately, because of marketing, etc., we got a lot of donations from the rest of the plot holders, and we made about £500.
Wonderful.
And that money goes towards helping the allotment continue.
So with both of you, you're doing stuff that is completely different to what you trained for.
Yes. Yeah.
So you've moved on from your work. You've greatly expanded your things. So how do you go about doing that?
I think for me, I'd gone to night school actually before. So in my late 40s, I went to night school and did carpentry. So I did 2 years of night school. I have got my Sitting Guilds level 1 and 2, but you learn how to do fancy cuts and all the rest of it. But the reality is, when you're faced with trying to do something, you have to always think of some other way to fix the problem.
Yeah.
So it's really because I'm always trying to recycle wood rather than go and buy some lovely new timber and build something from that. I try always to use wood that had a different purpose before. So it's never quite straight, it's never quite flat, and so you'll have to be quite adventurous in your fixing of things.
And for me, obviously, having trained as a chef, volunteering at the Food Project is just an extension of that.
Yeah.
And in terms of allotment, I had an allotment before I retired, when we were in our previous house, but never really had the time to join the committee. And so it was a given that eventually we would get an allotment locally, which we were lucky enough to do. But I don't think it was a particular plan to join the committee. I got sucked in. A bit like Colin when he sucks people into the Repair Cafe.
Yeah, absolutely. Can I just ask both of you, either of you, if you met somebody who's coming up to retirement, what would your advice be to them?
I think a couple of things. Make sure that you make room for hobbies and interests whilst you're working, so that it's not okay, this was my working life, finish, oh hell, what do I do now? I think trying to develop interests, or at least thinking about it before you retire, and also making sure that when you retire, you have social contact. Because for Fiona and I, there was quite a few years whilst I was retired and Fiona was working. I loved it. I just went off and did what I wanted to do every day. But now that Fiona's retired as well, it's really nice because we do different things, but we also do a lot of things together.
Very, very interesting. And that's a very good point we haven't come across before, I think, to start getting interests before.
And it's not just about interests, because my father had played golf from probably his onwards, and actually he ended up with arm that didn't work very well, so he actually couldn't play golf, and that was one of his big social events, and also exercise, and he struggled to change it into something else. So I think the key thing is to be flexible. So one day I could be going to the cinema, another day I could be going to a museum, and actually I don't always enjoy every exhibition that I've gone to, but actually in some way they've always opened something up for a discussion. And so I quite often try and meet people and we go and do stuff together. So it started off as I wanted to do 60 things for 60. And so I still try and meet people and we go and do something. So, something unusual they've never done before. So I'm still planning.
I was just going to say, it's a good job you're not coming up 80 things for 80.
So I've still got to do the digger day if you want to come.
No,
Sorry, go on, Carl.
I just think that's wonderful. 60 for 60. 60 things
60.
you've never done in a year. That's just a great.
I'm struggling to fit it all in because it's over one a week, isn't it? So, yeah. We might have to overshoot my birthday.
I think you're up to about 40 something at the moment.
Yeah. That's very good. Very good. I like that, because when you're working, it's so, or poorly, there just isn't the time to develop these. You couldn't do 60 things while you're working, for example, could you? It just isn't the time. And what's next for the two of you? Future plans?
So part of my breast cancer recovery, which I'm still trying to recover from, is I'm trying to keep my brain active by learning new things. So I currently have half a dozen electronics books, and I bought myself a radio kit, and I am currently trying to build a radio. Badly, I think is, but it's all good practice. So, even if it has to go in the bin at the end of it, it won't be too bad. And I want to also be able to read a book. I would like to have the concentration again to read a book. I always loved reading books, and it's something I am unable to do. And I've really struggled since it's 5 years since my cancer treatment finished. And I think I've read 3 books. Now, I used to be able to read a book in a couple of days. So, yeah, that would be my thing for me, rather than for anybody else. The electronics is so that I can fix more at the repair cafe. But the books would be for me.
Very good.
And I want to do a few more like big travel trips in the next few years, and maybe look at some other different volunteering. Is there anything else?
Yeah. Anything that we should be asking you and we haven't? I mean, it's been so interesting.
I think finding new friends can be quite difficult as you get older.
Yes.
And don't forget, we moved area during COVID. So not only did I stop working, we also moved where we lived to Teddington. And part of the volunteering is actually how you meet new people.
Yeah.
So I'm meeting 2 people for coffee separately, one from the language school and one from the furniture scheme. So even though I haven't been there very much this year, I still get a call to come out and have a coffee. So finding friends is not easy as you get older, and when you move areas, you really have to work at it.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Right.
So, yes, exactly.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot for us to take in there.
Yeah, definitely. And, really grateful, Judith and Fiona for your time and your, all your ideas and everything you've come up with. So thank you very much indeed.
Hearing your incredible lives, really extraordinary, before and after work. Just quite extraordinary. Now, brother, are we done?
We're done, right?
We just
Thank
wanted
you.
to know where to send the invoice to.
Yeah,
So
hit
if
him.
you would just hold there for a second,
Cafe.
right? So it's
That's
it's
it.
on
It's
for an
goodbye
hour.
from him. It's goodbye from him.
Bye.
It's the other way.
Goodbye from me.
See you.
Bye.